Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amanda Poss. I'm the gallery director at Hillsborough Community College. I oversee our galleries across our campuses, but most of the time you'll find me at Dale Mabry or at Ybor City. As part of the HCC Art Galleries, we also manage our public art program, which is called Ground for Art, and a growing permanent art collection. I'm joined here with my colleague, Court, who I'm going to invite to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Court Hartle, pronouns they, them. I am the collections manager for the HCC Art Galleries.
Court, in their many responsibilities, helps us as a small team and help to research, develop, and write this grant-funded project. And so Court will be as able to answer any of your questions as I will. Before we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge and thank the Hillsborough County Arts Council and the Hillsborough Board of County Commissioners. Their grant is what makes this project possible and for us to open this up and give money back to artists within our community. So we're very grateful for their support and excited for this project. Throughout today's presentation, we invite you to, in a very interactive manner, add any comments or questions you may have into the Q&A function, not the chat. So again, any comments or questions you may have, please use the Q&A function of this webinar. Court will be monitoring that as we go along slide by slide. So I'll just present the information in the slide. I'll invite Court to add any information, and then we'll pause and take a look at that Q&A to see if any specific questions to the topics that we're covering at that moment in time have been entered. So we'll kind of go through it point by point, but we'll also have a moment at the end for any additional questions. For those of you who take a little longer, just want to think about it and maybe not immediately, we'll have the opportunity for both methods of engagement so it's as accessible to you as possible. Okay, without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Of course, we're talking about Now on View. It is a brand new ephemeral public art festival that will be hosted in Ybor City this coming year, or in this year. Just an overall kind of introduction to this. Much of this information you will see on our application, but just in case. The Hillsborough Community College Art Gallery is seeking proposals from artists and creatives for Now on View, an ephemeral public art festival taking place in Ybor City, tentatively scheduled for Saturday, June 1st, 2024. Artists must be available for the festival to be eligible to participate. 8 selected applicants will receive a $1,000 stipend to activate Now on View by designing temporary art installations specific to Hillsborough County, especially the Tampa and Ybor City area, and participating in the festival. If you're joining because somebody shared this webinar link with you and you have not yet checked out our submission website, you can jot that down now. Court will also be dropping that into the Q&A, so you have that link handy. So project description, the purpose of Now on View is to create a thoughtful series of temporary public artworks that invite the public to consider Tampa's past, present, and future. Local artists, will explain how we define that in a moment, will be selected through an open call to create site-responsive artworks that speak to Tampa's rich history, while also considering concepts of representation, presence, and connection. The resulting artworks will be displayed in a one-day public festival in Ybor City with music, food, and other entertainment. And we'll be getting to a lot of the additional specifics, and there is a very beautiful, longer additional description for the project on our application website. But I want to pause for a moment if Court would like to add anything at this time, or if you have any questions or comments that have matriculated into the chat.
I have nothing to add, and we don't have any questions so far.
Okay, so you're all with me so far. We'll just keep going. So I mentioned that this is an opportunity specifically meant for artists within our area. So as the first criteria of eligibility that we'll be looking at, and you will confirm this as part of your submission. So you must be based in Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, Polk, or Manatee County. So this is how we're, for the purpose of this project, defining local artists as artists from one of those 5 counties in our region. You must, of course, be able to attend the festival, which I mentioned is tentatively scheduled for June 1st. It's a Saturday. Demonstrate experience and familiarity with materials and methods for creating temporary and/or public art installations. In that, we're expressing that we would like for you to show to us as part of the application that you have some kind of related experience. This could be someone who has done many public projects in the past or has done similar types of projects, but maybe hasn't just done it publicly yet. It'll be up to you to demonstrate in the application through your resume that you will be able to complete the project as proposed. And also with all of our public art projects done through Hillsborough Community College, we like to emphasize having a strong interest in community engagement. So as part of your application and having this in the public realm in Hillsborough County in June, we want you to be excited about interacting with the community. So these applications can be submitted as an individual or on behalf of a group or collective. What's important to note here is that if you are submitting as part of a group or collective, that $1,000 stipend that would be given to you as part of your commission would be provided to the group as a whole. In other words, it is $1,000 awarded to each of the 8 proposals that are selected, not to say you have a collective of 5 artists and yours is selected, you will not be getting $1,000 for each of the artists in your collective because it's all considered part of the same proposal. Court, would you like to add anything or address comments or questions in the Q&A?
No comments or questions so far.
All right. Again, if you haven't thought of one yet, because you're waiting to hear more, we will have time for questions at the end as well. So important deadlines for you to keep in mind. The applications themselves will be due February 9th by 5 p.m. Again, that is through JotForm. That link was included at the beginning of this presentation. The finalist notification will occur no later than February 23rd. And the festival itself, as I mentioned, is going to be held Saturday, June 1st. So what I want to note here, as well as what's already in the application website, is that if you're selected, you will have access to the host site. We're going to talk about those host sites later on in this presentation, the day prior. So we're not expecting you, if you really need additional time, to just set up, do your project and break down all in the same day. We've coordinated with each of the host sites to get you access the day before. Not only if you're setting things up but for those of you who might be in the performing arts, for example, you may need some time to run through dress rehearsals and text. So this is available to you. You do not have to be at the host site the day before if you don't need to, but we wanted to make sure that you guys were set up for success if you are selected, and have some advanced access to those sites. In court, any comments for yourself or in the Q&A?
No questions, but I do just want to emphasize that the deadline is 5 p.m. I am also an artist myself, and I know that oftentimes we will hear a deadline as, it's February 9th and take that to mean 11:59 p.m. because that is usually the case. It is 5 p.m. So please, please, please make note of that.
It's an excellent point. It will automatically close the application. So jot that down, set an alarm, whatever you need. Sometimes I put in my own planner the day before as the deadline, just so I have a little bit of wiggle room. But that's a very good point. It is by that particular time on the 9th. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about proposals. You've heard me hint a little bit about this earlier on, but the project steering committee will be looking for artwork that reflects the cultural vibrancy of Hillsborough County by encouraging artists to craft proposals that relate to various backgrounds, traditions, and historical narratives of the region. And so if we're talking about art, we want to put forward a shared definition. And so our committee for Now on View defines art in a very broad sense, so the arts in general. So this may include, but is not limited to, some of the examples we have on this list. Visual art, of course, is one, but we'd love to see literary arts, theater or dramatic arts, music, other performance-based artistic media, interactive art, time-based media, and this list could be much, much longer to try to make it exhaustive, but we just wanted to give you an idea of other types of artistic expression that we would love to see, but this list is by no means exhaustive. We're really excited about the creative potential of our community and looking forward to seeing what you guys would like to propose. So does not necessarily have to be visual art, though we do like visual art as along with all the other disciplines. Again, Court, any comments from you or from the Q&A?
Nope, not so far.
Okay, we're moving right along. So one thing I'm sure you guys are all very interested in are these host sites. So I wanted to talk a little bit during the webinar about the locations. As I mentioned, there's going to be a total of 8 artists that will be selected to do these temporary public art installations over the course of one day at these select venues in Ybor City. So the first of which is the HCC Ybor City campus. And then Tempest Projects, which is housed within the Crest building, and Hotel Haya. And you can see images of those there on the right. If you're not familiar with these spaces, I'm sure many of you already are, but if not, or you want to get a refresher, I do encourage you to come on over, check out these spaces, kind of walk through them yourselves on the application website. And this is really important. You will see hyperlinks on each of these names when it talks about the locations. That brings up a document that pretty thoroughly goes over the specifics for each location. It will talk about where within. So for example, at the HCC Ybor City campus, we'll probably have around 3 of those total accepted and awarded applications on site. And so we've identified a few of those locations in that project document. It includes things like general dimensions, some images, your access to electrical if you're doing things like projection or you need speakers. And so it does that by each site. And so it's important to be looking at those as you're thinking about and brainstorming your potential proposal. We love for it if it's flexible so that we can move these once we select our 8 and really thoughtfully curate and pair them as a committee for each of our host venues. But one other thing that you will be able to do as you are submitting is you will be able to select your preference on location. So though I said you should make it very flexible, so it could be at any of them potentially, we will be taking into consideration what your ranked preferences are for those 3. This is one I'm sure you may have questions or comments about. Court, would you like to add anything?
I have nothing to add. I think you were pretty thorough with that, and we don't have any questions for this slide.
Okay, again, in the absence of any specific questions or comments, I'll just reiterate, you can physically come and check out these spaces. You're welcome to drop by. Our gallery is located, if you look at that top right image, we're inside the Performing Arts Building at the Ybor City campus. If you stop by during our hours of operation, we can even get you a parking pass in the adjacent parking lot for the day. But go look around, check out these sites if it's like feasible for you, but if not, you're also very highly encouraged to check out those individual documents that have the specific information for each host venue. Okay, Court's going to talk a little bit about this slide for similar projects. So Court, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right, so when we were researching and writing the grant, one thing that we did was we looked for similar projects to give us kind of an idea of what shape we wanted this festival to take place. I found two that were particularly um, seemed particularly useful for what we're trying to do. The first one is called Overnight Projects. And Amanda, I can actually share my screen if you want. I don't have to though. Okay. Um, share screen. Ta-da. Okay.
Here we go.
So overnight projects, they are no longer running, but it was an artist-run curatorial project, and they organized temporary site-responsive installations. Does that sound like kind of familiar to you guys? And something that I really like about these projects in particular is if you're not familiar with site responsive installations, they're well researched and documented. And so they can give you an idea for the kinds of work that work really well in these kind of like outside of the white cube spaces. So I would recommend looking at some of these if you are not familiar with making temporary site responsive installations. Some of them do a really good job, using the space, responding to historical narratives, stuff like that. It's likely that these projects will be a lot bigger and more involved than our proposals because they did go on for a couple weeks at a time and not one day. So just keep that in mind. The next, let's see, here we go. The next one is Luma Festival, which is a projection mapping festival in Binghamton, New York. Um, what really stood out to me about this is the community impact, and also just that it looks like a lot of fun. And so this considers less the installations and more of like the festival aspect of it, that like it's going to be a large community event, that we want people to engage with the artworks themselves, but we also want people to, have a good time, take pride in the community, feel like they're part of something. And so you can also get ideas. These are specifically projection mapping. Um, so, which, is something that you could propose in your proposal. Um, but it also just gives, again, a good idea of like the kind of the broader scope of the project too. So yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. If anybody has any questions, or Amanda, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, so there was one of our webinar participants that was unable to use the Q&A, and so I'll make this announcement for everyone. Similarly, if you're having trouble with the Q&A, we can take a look at the chat as well. We'll do our best to monitor both. Understand technology is good when it works, but frustrating when it's not. The question in the chat was from Mia asking if we know if the festival has a tentative time. My response, which I'll share with all of you, was that we are currently looking at, in collaboration with our committee, for on June 1st, something in the realm of morning to early afternoon. We all know what it's like in Florida by June, so we're trying to avoid the worst of the heat because, as Court said, we want this to be a fun experience, not only for our artists, but for the community. But we haven't announced a specific time yet because we will be working with the 8 selected artists or groups that are awarded the commission just to make sure that we're planning for a time that will ensure that everybody has sufficient time to set up and prepare and have a successful and fun project. So again, we will be announcing the specific times of the festival on Saturday, June 1st, after we have notified our artists or groups that have been awarded the commission. But that was a great question. Another one that came in the Q&A from Mary Helen Horn. Thank you for adding your question. It said, will the exhibition spaces be mostly on the wall, or will any provide room for 3D work or for viewers to circulate around the pieces? A lot of that can be found. Well, the quick answer is yes to both. There will be opportunities for multiple ways of display depending on your proposal. It's one of the reasons why that we decided we wanted to allow you guys the opportunity to rank which host site you really prefer, because maybe your proposal, while flexible, is better suited for one over another. The different host sites have identified areas within their location that they would like to see these projects take place. And some of them do lean a little bit more, it's two-dimensional. So for example, at Hotel Haya, one of the possible spaces that you can read about in the document in our application is more of like a small part of a lobby and then a hall. That might be really ideal for someone who's doing more two-dimensional work, though you could do a lot of other things as well. The minimum thing for here, like any public project, is that you're thinking about the crowd and methods of egress and how people will move around it. But there are, if you have three-dimensional work and say that's going to require more space, more of a footprint, there are also several spaces within our 3 host venues that are fairly large and could accommodate something quite substantial. So we wanted to have this be a combination indoor-outdoor, some more modest, some a little bit larger, just so that we weren't limiting the scope of your creativity and your proposal. So we're excited about possibly like smaller, intimate kind of moments, but also for those of you who might need a little bit bigger space for crowd interaction, like for example, if it's a musical performance, there are a few spaces that are really well suited to that as well. So good questions. Thank you for those. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Get back into the presentation. So budget, there's a few things here that we just wanted to highlight for you. Again, all the information that Court and I are presenting to you all today can be found within the application website. But as we said, HCC will select 8 proposals for commission, each of which will receive a $1,000 stipend. Again, that is per proposal. It could be one artist, it could be 20. If it's all a part of the same proposal, you get the same amount each. So this is meant to be an all-inclusive amount. So we do really encourage you, we don't want to limit the scope of your creativity, but we also want you guys to be thinking about all the things that you may need to purchase or other people you may need to collaborate with and pay. Just keep that in mind with the overall budget of $1,000. So, any sort of construction and purchase of materials will need to be covered within that. Stipends for additional performers or collaborators, any expenses related to travel, insurance, or rentals, and your participation in the festival. You're doing that within our project budget and deadline. So really, you think about it this way. If you are awarded, you will get that $1,000 lump sum. And the expectation is that the proposal that you have submitted is feasible and successful and has enough for you, what you feel comfortable with as an artist, that everything, including, acknowledging your time and professional expertise, fits within that amount. Now, one thing that any vendors working with the college has to provide in order to receive a payment of that amount is a policy of general liability insurance. I'm just going to talk about this generally, rest assured if you are selected for your application, we will work with you hand in hand, phone calls, emails. We do a lot to try to guide you through the process. But what we mean by insurance is a general liability insurance policy. If you have, for instance, your own business already, because you do, I'm just going to give a random example, you commonly do murals for institutions or individuals, you may already have a general liability policy. All we would need from you is the certificate that includes the hold harmless for the college. Again, we would walk you through that. If you don't, have no fear. We do this with artists all the time. There are websites that you can use to purchase one-day general liability insurance policies. They generally cost only about $100. The one we frequently recommend is called Event Helper. So if you'd like to take a look at that and see what that might entail, you're welcome to do so on your own time as you're trying to get a sense of whether or not this is the right project for you. But again, that $1,000 is per accepted proposal, should include all of the materials and the resources you need to be successful. And because this is processed through the college, you will be required to show us a certificate of insurance. If you don't have one, you will need to purchase one. And as I mentioned, you can do this for a pretty reasonable fee through websites such as Event Helper. Court, any additional comments from yourself or from our Q&A or chat?
No, and not yet.
Okay. No worries. I know this is the part where it can be a lot of information, and if you've not gone through this, it might seem daunting, but please rest assured that my team is committed to making these successful. And if you are selected, we will help guide you through the process. You will not be on your own. Okay, so as our committee meets, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, I just want you guys to have this criteria in mind, that strong applications will need to include some combination of the following. So demonstrate a clear concept for the temporary public art installation or performance. And you'll do this by submitting something like a concept render, or for those of you who might be performance-based, maybe it is a link to a video of a similar performance that you have done in the past. That just helps us get a sense of what you're going to be submitting. Explain how your project conceptually connects to the theme of Now on View, which again, you can read about extensively on that application website. Serve as inspiration to our campus and local communities. Consider values such as education and inclusion. Generate a sense of community pride and stimulate conversation and interaction. If you are curious how we have acknowledged proposals who meet these kinds of criteria in the past at Hillsborough Community College, you're encouraged to review some of our past public art projects at hccfl.edu/grounds4art. You can go to our past projects part of the website and scroll through the things that we have done through the college to date. Not on here, but you heard Court and I say it a couple times earlier. Again, we're looking for something that stimulates community interaction and engagement, pride, and frankly, that we're all having a little bit of fun, right? Any comments, Court, from yourself or from our audience?
No questions from the audience. I also just, if you're not aware, I have dropped a couple links in the Q&A section. I linked that Grounds for Art page directly in the Q&A, as well as our location and the job form if you want to access those links.
Great, thank you, Court. So you might be curious who's reviewing your application. We don't give the name specifically at this point, but know that the selection committee is comprised of folks like HCC faculty, staff, and students, as well as representatives from our community partners. So our community partners, for example, would include a representative from each of our host sites. So someone from Hotel Haya, from Tempest Projects and or the Crest, and HCC is well represented, right? And then the committee will review the applicant's CVs and bios, as well as the included support materials regarding how each applicant would approach the public art installation. And we'll be working very, very hand in hand with any of the applicants who are selected for commission, if any adjustments to the concept or proposal are needed. Okay, so now this is the general questions portion. Does anybody want to chime in with comments or questions they have so far? Sometimes it can take a while to type that into the Q&A or the chat. Since there's nothing pending there, the last thing I'll do for you guys, while you're kind of mulling it over, see if you have any questions, is I can go ahead and share our application website, just so you can see some of the um, kinds of fields that you'll be filling out as an applicant, with the opportunity for you to ask questions while you have us here on the webinar. So a lot of the information Court and I have been discussing and expanding upon is here in the body of the application site. So you can see here the hyperlinks to those additional projects that Court discussed earlier, as well as the list of venues. I'll go ahead and click on one so you can see what this is like. Um, so this includes information about the host site, more links if you want to become more familiar with the location, and then the possible options that are available for the HCC Ybor City campus. Here you can see the sizes approximately for each of those options, and some images for each. So it's very clear, option one, for example, is the entrance to the Performing Arts building, which can also include as needed, but only if you would like, this outdoor area that we loosely refer to as a kind of sculpture garden. Another option on our campus is this exterior courtyard next to our Ybor building. You can see this if you go from the Performing Arts building south, actually walking towards Hotel Haya. It's a lovely little courtyard. This is the one I mentioned earlier that is quite large. So if you had three-dimensional pieces, or if you're trying to do a larger scale performance, it already even has like an embedded stage. So you can do this for all of the host sites, kind of look through what they have. Our third option is the dance studio, which is in our Child Development Center building that also houses the dance program. So we have this for every location. Let me scroll down a bit. This is what we all went over earlier. And this is the part I just wanted to briefly preview for you guys if you hadn't had a chance to do it so far. It's pretty standard initial information. We're just asking you for your contact information, confirming age, whether you're a community member, student, or faculty staff member. This question in particular is really just for our knowledge as we're moving through. There's some things in terms of contracts and conflicts of interest. So don't worry, all of these categories are eligible. No one is weighted over or less than others. This just helps us once and if you are selected on next steps and how to guide you. You have to confirm your eligibility by indicating which county you reside in. You'll be required to upload a copy of your CV or resume. And then you have some optional things that we added for you that could help to demonstrate your professional expertise or your creative concepts. So you're welcome to do things like add a link to your artist website or your social media handles. If you feel like this kind of information will be helpful for the committee when reviewing your application, you're welcome to add them, though you are not required. There's room here for a short bio. Please note at this section, as it's kind of clear here from the visuals, that you will be able to copy and paste or type that in. Where you have the ability to type or copy and paste into these fields on our application form, please take note of the maximum word counts. So for example, the bio is 300 words or less. And you can provide a slightly longer segment, 500 words or less, for a concise artist statement. The next section allows you to provide a detailed description of your project proposal. Just to help you through this process, if you're less familiar, want kind of a better sense of what we're looking for, we added things you might want to consider including, such as the central conceptual or thematic components, the kinds of materials or site requirements you may need to create this project and make it successful, how many people you anticipate being involved. With this, we mean flexibly, like if it requires or is best with a direct interaction with audience, what that looks like, or on the other side of it, say you are a group of performers like dancers, how many that you would foresee being included if you were selected. You can give us a sense of the duration, again, if this is something like performance, and also just a general sense of how you envision visitors will engage with the project. And you'll copy that into this field here with 1,000 words or less. After that, we have fields for you to submit support materials. We require at least one, but you could do more if you would like. So the first one, we're talking about at least 3 to 5 images or links that support your proposal / represent your skills. So this can include samples of past projects similar in nature to your proposal for now on view. And you are able to submit those 3 to 5 within this singular link. In addition, again, this is not required, but if you would like to add in support of your application, you could provide a conceptual rendering, work in progress video, or other supporting documentation that demonstrates a sense of what your temporary installation would look like. This could, it's not noted here, but again, we call this support material. This is anything that you think will help the committee make a decision about your proposal. So it could even be something like a letter of recommendation. Here is where we mentioned you're able to rank your preference for each of the venues. You just simply choose on each one if it's first, second, or third. Do try to put like only one for your first choice, only one for your second, and one for your third. And then you simply sign and submit. Okay, any questions, comments? Yes,
Simpson. Yeah.
Simpson, go ahead. I'm not sure if you'll be able to unmute yourself, but you're welcome to type into the chat. Oh, here, actually, I think I can allow your microphone, so bear with me. Okay. Simpson, you should be able to unmute yourself. If that doesn't work, again, you can just type into the chat. Looks like you're unmuted. Go ahead if you're ready. Ask your question. I'm not sure. Samson, so sorry if we're having technical problems on your end or ours. You should be unmuted. But again, anyone else too in the meantime, feel free to either raise your hand, we'll try to work with you, or put your comment or question into the Q&A or chat. Give you guys some time to do that. What I'll offer to you all, in case there's multiple individuals on the call with comments or questions and you might be having trouble, I'll just mention that there's an email address located on the application that you are welcome at any time to reach out to us. That's artgalleries@hccfl.edu. That goes to me and my team. So as soon as someone is available, we do try to get to that as quickly as possible.
So we have a question from Samson. Are we able to choose indoor or outdoor for the venue?
Yeah, so there are both indoor and outdoor options. As you saw for HCC, for example, there were both. There was one that has like an awning for our entrance, but extends to the exterior area, one that's fully outside in that courtyard that had like the little stage. And then the third was the dance studio, and that is fully inside. Um, Again, in your ranking, you can choose maybe the location you think has the better of those for the committee to consider, especially if you're selected and we're trying to thoughtfully curate all of these applications to the different host venues. But in your project description, and when you're telling us of what it would look like if this is something that must be inside, I would make sure to note it at that point. So again, if you have a proposal in mind that only works in an indoor environment, for example, I would encourage you to put that into that detailed project description so that we can take this into consideration as we're reviewing all of the applications.
We have a question from Ed. Do you know how long the entire presentation day will be? So duration.
Again, we're going to work this out with the applicants once they have been notified that they were selected for commission. We've been looking at things like um, 9 to 1 o'clock, for example, was something that our committee discussed. So we want it to be long enough that people can come and like freely mingle throughout the day, like the beginning of the day on Saturday, but also nothing that's too onerous on our selected artists or creative professionals, right? So we're not going to be asking you to be out there for like a 10-hour stretch all day. Again, we realize it's June and it gets hot in Florida. So as I mentioned, we're really looking at something more in the morning, early afternoon, so that we avoid the worst of the heat. There may be things that our committee have discussed doing, such as after the official festival ends, having some kind of meet and greet or kind of like post festival with our artists and creatives, and we would tell you guys about that as it comes up. But really, we are just rest assured that we haven't announced the duration. We're looking for something in the realm of like 3 or 4 hours, and we will be, as we have all of the applications that we want to award for commission, making sure that no matter what we decide, that it is feasible for all the people involved, for the community impact, and that it's just going to be successful and fun. So we're flexible, but that's generally what we're looking at this point. Let me know if that doesn't answer your question fully. kind of pause if there's anyone else that would like to follow up. Court, is there anybody that I've missed?
I don't see anyone either in the Q&A or in the chat.
Okay, so I'll just do some closing remarks. Thank you so much for coming and attending our webinar. Thanks, Court, for assisting me today. Um, I've said this a couple times now, but truly you are welcome to reach out at any time as we reach the deadline time and date. And you can email us, you can call. My team and I are at the gallery during our open hours, so you're welcome to come by and see us. We actually love the opportunity to interact with visitors and our communities members, so we welcome that if that helps for you to talk to us directly. But anyway, if you have questions, we're just excited to have you all potentially participate, that you're interested in our project. Encourage, if you're here on behalf of someone else, to share this information and let them know what you learned today. But we will be putting the recording of today's meeting right back on the application website on JotForm. It'll essentially be right there in the same place where we had the link for the webinar today. So don't worry if there's something you missed as you're writing notes from today, you will be able to go back and access this later. So thank you so, so much for joining us. We're really looking forward to seeing what kind of creative and exciting ideas you have for our new project. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.